Good morning, everyone, on this cold Friday morning. Some first thoughts on Friday, especially centered around our gospel reading, which is Luke, the 4th chapter, beginning with the 21st verse. It's a little bit of a rehash of what we had last week, but also now showing the response of the people, especially in his hometown of Nazareth. You might recall that what we talked about last week was Jesus had been baptized, had spent his time out in the wilderness with the devil for 40 days, all the temptation accounts that we'll have later on in the first Sunday in Lent. And now he's been out and about, and the word is getting back to his hometown, Nazareth, that, hey, this Jesus is really something. He's got some really good stuff to say. And the things he's doing, too, are kind of awesome. So that's the setup for this. Jesus goes to his hometown now, Nazareth. They hand him the scroll because he's the honored guest. He picks out the reading from Isaiah that says he's come to preach good news to the poor and proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord. You know, all that good stuff from Isaiah 61 and also a little bit of 58. Now, he sits down and everybody's listening to him. And they're spellbound by what he has to say, because after you, as a visiting rabbi or the rabbi of the temple, or rather the synagogue that you were in, after you read from the scriptures, you expounded on them, you talked about them, you interpreted them. And they're listening to Jesus and they're going, wow, this is awesome. And then all of a sudden they say, hey, show us something, Jesus. What do you mean, show us something? Well, evidently, they've heard the word, all the good stuff that Jesus is doing all through Capernaum. Now here he is, back home. Do it for us, Jesus. Show us that you are the one, that maybe you are this Messiah who's come to save us. And Jesus knows what's going on inside of them and says, you know, you don't need a sign. In fact, I'm not gonna give you, there's no sign. Maybe, hey, remember that time back there when Elijah gave food to that poor widow and she didn't die? Well, yeah, I know. It happens to be that poor widow was not a Jewish widow, but one of the surrounding towns. So she was a pagan, a heathen, a not us person. Hey, yeah, and you remember that time when Elisha healed that leper oh, yeah, that's right. He wasn't a Jew either. He was also not one of us. He was somebody else, on the outsider. That's what I'm going to talk about. And they got so angry at him that they took him, it says, to the edge of a cliff. They were going to throw him off and kill him, be all done with him, because he didn't live up to their expectations. Now, you have to wonder, why? Why didn't he? He had such a good word to speak. What was wrong with what he said? Jesus said he came to preach good news to the poor. That means he came to preach good news to those who are poor. He also came to preach that good news to we who are poor. And as we'll see in Matthew's gospel, could that be the poor in spirit as well? I don't want to conflate the two gospel stories together, but think about it. How can we be in poverty as far as our spiritual lives are concerned, to where we don't take seriously these words? Now, all through Jewish scriptures, it talks about taking care of the outsider, the foreigner, the person that's not one of us, not one of the quote-unquote people of God. But as the quote-unquote people of God, we are called to care for them as we care for one another. Is it possible that just wasn't happening in Nazareth? Think about it. Nazareth, it's surrounded by pagan territory. One of the disciples said at one point when he was told about Jesus, can anything good come out of Nazareth? Nazareth, way up there in that pagan territory, kind of situated right in the middle of it all, where the people may be expecting the Messiah to come rescue them from that, to maybe kick out all the bad influences of whatever paganism had crept in, and now we would return to being the real, true people of God. Although we are the real, true people of God, but we got, sure, we got to clean our act up, but We clean our act up by just getting rid of all the crud, just get rid of the bad people and the bad influences in our lives. And Jesus seems to be saying, I've come to preach good news. And that good news reaches pretty far out, as it did for the prophets of old. And he said, now I can see, a prophet just doesn't have any honor, not especially in his own hometown. The people knew who Jesus was. He's this poor carpenter's son. We know who you are. You're nobody of means, of wealth, of power. How can you pull all this off for us? And so they were offended by him. And they figured, hey, he doesn't fit into our narrative of who the good guys are and the bad guys are. So we got to maybe get rid of him. Well, as I'm surrounded by birds in here and chickens, I'm reminded that Jesus came to us in that very lowly situation that we just celebrated not too long ago, Christmas. And he came for all. The people who came to his bedside as a baby came from all over. Shepherds, the lowly shepherds, the ones who were about the lowest on the scale in society as you can get. You had the announcement made to outsider wise men who came from Persia, from the east. Holy mackerel! Jesus, what are you about? What are we to be about? As we hear the good news preached to us, does it change us? Does it make us new people who realize that God's love is for the whole created world? Or are we just going to walk away and try to discard you along the way? Just some first thoughts on a Friday. As I'm out here feeding the animals in the cold. Well, it's getting bright out there, as you can see now. That sure is cold. Cold, deepest part of winter right now, end of January. But you know what? There is good news for you and for me, not only in the scriptures, but also in the fact that spring will be here in a while. Just have to wait until the old groundhog does his little prediction this coming week. God's blessings be with you, and have an awesome day.